Radhe Radhe Govinda
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jutaha Padmanabham Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanitamscha Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Vangayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaura Trise Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipful beloved Gurudev Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada, and that I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipful beloved Siksha Gurudevs Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Astotarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhara Goswami Maharaj and Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Astotarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And my unlimited Dandavat Pranams to the lotus feet of all of my Sri Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga, and my Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavis. Sri Upadeshamrita by Srila Rupa Goswami. Third shloka, the 6 favorable activities for bhakti, which will enhance bhakti. Utsahan nishchayad dhairyat, tat karma pravartanat, sangatyaga sato vritte, sadvir bhakti prasiddhiti. So we are discussing Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary on each one of these items in the 2 verses of Upadeshamrita, verse 2 and 3. We're almost finishing the very last item in the list of 12 items. And that is called Sato Vritte or Sadhu Vritti, which means that we should follow the example of the previous acharyas. That should be our life's direction, should be gotten from that. So there's quite an elaborate discussion here about how our gross and subtle bodies can be made favorable for Krishna bhajan, and how Varnashram Dharma is actually a means by which this can be accomplished, but at the same time, it is not the goal, nor can it bring one to the final goal, but it is a means, and it is actually a necessary means for most Vaishnavas until bhakti becomes so prominent that now they have no interest any longer. Who told this? Who exemplified this mood? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Where did he demonstrate this publicly in front of millions of people? In Jagannath Puri, at the Rath Yatra festival. Yes? At the Rath Yatra festival, Mahaprabhu stood in front of Lord Jagannath at the beginning of the whole cart festival. And he said various shlokas, like Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha Jagat Hitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. He proclaimed various shlokas. But one shloka in particular emanated from his lotus mouth. And there he talked about what he is, and also what he is not. Can you guess which shloka this is? Can you know the whole slok? You bring the microphone here. Try your best, because by trying, that's how you gradually learn it. No, vanasto, yatirva. Kintu? No? Kintu? Prodyan? Nikila? Paramananda? Purnam Ritabde Bartu. Okay. KK, you know the translation? Okay. Anyone knows?
Yeah, right. I'm not a.
You have to use the mic.
I just in a quick reference, like it just that I'm not a Sudra, I'm not a Vaishya, I'm not a Sannyasi, I'm not a Brahmana, I'm not all these things. I'm just the servant of the servant of the servant of the gopis. Gopi Vartu Palakamayor of the Gopi Vartu. Vartu means like the close person to the gopis, right? Or
I'm a servant of that person who is the maintainer. Gopi Bhartu, Padakamayor, of his lotus feet. I am Dasa, Dasa, Anudasa. Servant of the servant of the servant. Sometimes Prabhupada would say 1,000 times removed. Servant of servant of servant of servant. I actually remember in this context the first time that I saw Srila Prabhupada in Detroit in 1971. And there was a very large painting, maybe it was like 7 or 8 feet wide on the wall. Because they were doing these copies of the Brijbasi prints, the artists, and they were painting them for the walls of the temples that were being started everywhere. So they were sending them to Los Angeles, and because Detroit now had a nice building, so they were sending. Shamarani will remember all of these, because she painted a lot of them. So there was a Brijbasi print, you know, it's very famous, you've all seen it many times, of Radha and Krishna and the 8 gopis. And it's a scene in Vrindavan, it's like the old Brijbasi style, you know, those prints. And one of the gopis is playing mridanga, another gopi is holding a tambura or a veena or whatever. Like that. So that was on the wall, like as big as where the Guru Parampara is, that wide, and probably about 5 or even 6 feet high, by, looks like about 8 feet there. Okay? So Srila Prabhupada was sitting directly across, and he was looking at that painting, and he was referring to it, and he was saying, this is the spiritual world. This is the spiritual world. He said, in the spiritual world, it is the opposite of the material world. Because in the material world, everyone is trying to become more and more the master. But in the spiritual world, it is exactly the opposite. Everyone is trying to become more and more the servant of the servant of the servant. And the fact is, the more that one becomes even farther removed as the servant of the servant of the servant, the higher his position becomes in the spiritual world. But in the material world, if they become more the master, that's how they become in a higher position in the material world. But in the spiritual world, completely the opposite. You see? Yes. So in that way, Srila Prabhupada was showing what Mahaprabhu was telling in his shloka. So Mahaprabhu is declaring there, publicly, in front of Lord Jagannath, Naham Vipra. I am not a Brahmana, Vipra. Not a Narapatir, I'm not a Kshatriya. Napi Vaishyo, I'm not a Vaishya. Nasudro, I'm not a Sudra. Naham Varni, Nacha Grihapatir. Naham Varni means brahmachari. Nacha Grihapatir means householder, grihastha. No Vanasto, Vanaprastha. Yatirva, Yati means sannyasi. Mahaprabhu was dressed as a sannyasi, and he's saying, I'm not a sannyasi. Then he says, Kintu, but what am I? Kintu prodyan nikila paramananda purnamrita der. All those words refer to who? Krishna. He says, Kintu prodyan nikila. Prodyan nikila paramananda. That supreme absolute truth. Param Ananda, who is the supreme ecstatic personality. Nikila, the pure ecstatic ocean. Purna Amritabdea, the ocean of ecstatic love. That is Krishna. Prodya Nikila Puram Paramananda Purnam. Purnam means full, complete. Purna Amritabdea. Amrita, nectar of the ocean. Purnamritabdea Gopi Bartu. So he's telling what he is. Gopi Bartu, that person who is the maintainer of the gopis. How is he maintaining? With his praying. Gopi Bartu. They are completely maintained by him. They can't live for a moment without him. Gopi Bartu. Pada Kamalayor. Pada Kamalayor means his lotus feet. His lotus feet of that person who is the maintainer of the gopis. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Radha Govinda Ki Jai. Gopi Bharatu Pada Kamalayor Dasa Dasa Anudasa. Servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. That is who I am. What was Mahaprabhu's mood? He was completely in the mood of Srimati Radhika, completely in the mood of the gopis. And that's because he's the combination of Radha and Krishna, his golden form. And now he's going to dance as Radha dancing in front of Jagannath, Krishna. And that performance is unparalleled in the whole universe. But millions of people got to see it. As Mahaprabhu was dancing so ecstatically, jumping high in the air, crashing to the ground, his eyes literally like a syringe pouring in all directions tears. Yes, it's described exactly like that. It's not exaggeration. Everyone became wet around him. Because he's Radha. He's in the mood of separation and meeting. This festival is commemorating the meeting of Radha and Krishna, the first time after so long. And they're meeting where? Kurukshetra. When Krishna is surrounded by all military, royal paraphernalia, elephants, horses, grand king of kings. But Radha is not satisfied because she can only remember Krishna in Vrindavan. She cannot relate with that. Yes, we are the same. Rupa Goswami wrote such a verse. Mahaprabhu spoke one verse, and then Rupa Goswami understood it, and he wrote another verse, which explained more explicitly what was the meaning of the first verse, and how you are the same Krishna, and I am the same Radha. But this is not Vrindavan. Where is Yamuna? Where is your beautiful playing of the fifth note on your flute in the forest of Vrindavan? That is not here. I cannot be here. This is my heart. My heart and my mind are Vrindavan. And I want that you will be there. You will place your lotus feet mercifully there in my heart and come to Vrindavan. And in her heart, she and all the Brajagopis performed the first Ratha Yatra festival there at Kurukshetra. Yes, in their heart. Through separation with bringing Krishna on the chariot of their hearts, bringing him back to Vrindavan. This is the pinnacle of Mahaprabhu's manifested pastimes in this world, Ratha Yatra, Prasanga. The moods that were there. And then for the final years, as Mahaprabhu remained in Jagannath Puri only, going deeper and deeper and deeper in these separation moods. So, just see how high are the pastimes of Mahaprabhu. But yet he's always instructing everyone. Even in the midst of his highest ecstatic pastimes, he's teaching us, actually, you are not this body. You are not a Kshatriya. You are not a Vaishya, Sudra, Sannyasi. You are not this. And this is the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because only we are servants of Krishna. That's all. That's all. And any other sense of identification is understood to be temporary and of very little importance. In comparison, everyone in this world has very much importance placed upon their bodily relations in this world. Isn't it? Everyone, even the dogs and the cats, but especially in human society. So much importance placed upon bodily relationships and connections in this world. But actually, this is of very little importance in relation to our eternal identity and relationship with Krishna. Anyone, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Srila Maharaj explained, anyone who can even for a moment experience and penetrate into that area of the Atma and feel that true eternal connection, not even your full developed rasa, but just this is who you are. This is your eternal connection. It will last forever. It will never be destroyed. All of these bodily relationships will only for a few moments, few days, this, that, right? And gone, evaporated. All will evaporate, everything, as it has done continually for millions of lifetimes. I remember how Srila Gurudev comforted one lady. I'm not remembering who it was, where it was, anything. But she was bearing her heart to Gurudev. In her life, I don't know, I think her husband passed away or something like this. I can't even remember those details. But she was crying in front of Gurudev, and Gurudev's listening to her. And she was so troubled by this. But what did Gurudev say? He said, That was all a dream. That was all a dream. And he's telling the fact. You remember who it was?
Uddara's wife.
Yes. Uddara's wife.
I don't remember.
What's her name again?
Pandita.
Yeah, Pandita. Right. I think she was given another name by Gurudev as well. Yeah, and when Gurudev told her that, immediately she was relieved of this great, great burden. You see? So all the jivas are playing in this illusory shadow dance on the wall of Maya. But when we become, even for a moment, woken to our real connection, which is permanent, eternal, we can feel the difference profoundly. And that becomes the one and only aim and objective of our life and of any life. And this is what we want. This is our treasure. This is the treasure. They have come to give us. These personalities have descended from Goloka Vrindavan to give us this treasure of prema and our relationship with Krishna. Life after life after life, eternally. What could be greater than this? Is there anything we can even conceive of in time and in space that could be greater and superior than this? No. Mm-hmm. So we're studying how to get there. Upadeshamrita, the nectar of all instructions. How can we direct our life's activities to attain that? And Varnashram, this is what we've been discussing. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is telling. It is a means, but we have to understand it in its proper relationship. You see? So, we're moving on now. I'll just read a couple of sentences from yesterday. Varnashram, Varnashram is to be followed until the body is given up. From this, one should not conclude that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has ordered us to abandon Varnashram Dharma. No. Had this been the case, then during his time as a householder, he would not have instructed the living entities by completely following the principles pertaining to the Grihastha ashram. If he didn't want to place important, then why did Mahaprabhu follow all those principles? And during his time as a sannyasi, by following the principles of the sannyas ashram. So as long as one possesses a material body, then Varnashram Dharma must be observed, but in such a way that it remains fully subordinate to bhakti. This sentence we should remember always. Subordinate to bhakti. We are not following ordinary Varnashram Dharma. We are following bhakti. And the Varnashram system is an aid to that. But it must always remain subordinate to bhakti. Varnashram Dharma is the foundation of Paradharma. We mentioned that yesterday. Or Parodharma means the supreme occupational duty. Parodharma. So Varnashram is the foundation for that. And when a person's Parodharma is fully matured and he achieves his goal, he gradually acquires a mood of disregard for the means, that is, the regulations of Varnashram Dharma, by which he has attained his goal. Gradually he has a disregard for that. This is essential to understand in the Srimad Bhagavatam. There are many, many instructions given in this regard. One adheres to those rules, regulations, etc., as long as it is necessary, but when the goal becomes more and more attained, then he disregards this. I remember traveling with Gurudev, and he's in a sannyas ashram, okay? But he was so very transcendental to that all the time. It was very obvious, you know. But he's just playing this external role. I'm a sannyasi, you know. But he had no sense of identification with that, only in his role as an acharya, and he's holding the danda and he's showing the necessary adherence to ashram dharma, like that. Because it's a means, it's necessary, it's helpful, right? But Srila Gurudev, he's Paramahansa. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is what? Maha Paramahansa, Maha Bhagavat. But yet, he took the cloth of renunciation and established Daivi Varnashram Dharma and the Sannyas Ashram, which had not been established in that way in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, right? He studied the Ramanuja Sampradaya and then he established Tridanda Sannyas. In Mahaprabhu, you know, he took sannyas. From who? Keshava Bharati, who was in which Sampradaya? Shankaracharya Sampradaya, right? Which is the Mayavad system. But at that time, for the sake of the reputation, receiving the honor and respect of the sannyas ashram as a means for preaching, Mahaprabhu accepted that sannyas ashram, right? But Mahaprabhu immediately, as soon as he finished the sannyas ceremony, what mood was he in? Where is my Krishna? Where is he? Where is he? And then, I'm going to Vrindavan, and he starts walking. And Nityananda leads him along the bank of the Ganga and a few of the other associates. And he's completely lost in Vrindavan. And then he sees and he thinks, oh, this is the Yamuna. You're in Vrindavan. But then what happened? Advaita Acharya was waiting there. Nityananda had led him to where? Shantipur, on the banks of the Ganga. Actually, he was that on the same side? No, yeah, it was on the other side of where Shantipur is. So they had to take the boat across. So, you know, then Mahaprabhu saw Advaita Acharya, said, oh, Advaita, you're also here in Vrindavan. And Advaita Acharya says what? Oh my Lord, wherever you are, that is Vrindavan. And he looks at Nityananda. Nityananda, where have you led me? And then they quiet him down. And Mahaprabhu, then they had to take the boat across. And what happened? Mahaprabhu fell out of ecstasy into the Ganga. And then they had to bring him back onto the boat. And then they got to the other side. And then, then there was clean and dry new cloth. Because Mahaprabhu had just taken the sannyas vesh. So it was dry cloth. And then Advaita Acharya wanted to bring him to his own house, where his wife Sita Devi had cooked. He had cooked unlimited amounts of preparations and prasada, right? And Advaita Acharya, he wanted to be the first to offer alms to the new sannyasi, right? And to feed him. And then Nityananda Prabhu and they were brought into the room. And there was like stacks and stacks of all different size clay pots with so many different vegetable preparations, dals and curries and rice, different everything. You know, like hundreds of preparations. And Mahaprabhu is looking at this and he says, oh, anyone that can offer such wonderful preparations for the Lord is so fortunate. And then Mahaprabhu says, Advaita is saying, so you should sit now. You sit now. Take your meal now. So he sits him down, and Nityananda Prabhu sits him down, right? And then now they come, with a leaf plate and a mountain of very special rice with the ghee, right? And then Mahaprabhu says, yes, just give me some simple vyanjana, what's it called? Lapra vyanjana, like boiled vegetable preparation, mixed vegetable, right? And some rice. But Advaita Acharya starts placing in front of him, cup after cup after cup of all different everything. And Mahaprabhu starts complaining, I am a sannyasi. I'm not supposed to eat like this. And then was it then that Advaita Acharya said, my Lord, please, just be quiet and eat. We know that you are eating, 64 times every day in Jagannath Puri, as Jagannath Dev. So anyway, then Mahaprabhu submits, and he starts to take prasad. And he and Nityananda are taking preparation, and Advaita Acharya is coming and serving more. As soon as they finish even half of a cup, immediately he fills it up. Literally hundreds of preparations, right? So then, it's continuing on and on. It must have been going on for an hour or 2 hours, whatever, right? And then finally Mahaprabhu, okay. But then Nityananda, he says, what? What is this? You have not even given me enough to fill half of my belly. What is this? You invite me here. Huh? And then Advaita Acharya and him, they start a mock battle. And Nityananda Advaita Acharya says, what will become of my caste, my Brahminical caste? This person here, sitting here, we don't even know what caste he's from, this Avadut, So they're glorifying each other and insulting each other, right? And then Nityananda just becomes furious, and he takes a handful of rice and he throws it at Advaita Acharya. And the rice sticks to his body, and he begins to dance ecstatically. And then Mahaprabhu washes his hands, everything, and Advaita Acharya arranged to bring Mother Sachi there. And now, Mother Sachi is seeing her Nimai for the first time in sannyas vesh with his beautiful hair shaved, and she takes him in her lap and is weeping and weeping. And Mahaprabhu, he is saying, oh, I have gone mad. Oh, my mother, I've gone mad, and I've gone and I've taken sannyas, and this body belongs to you. You give any order. If you want, then I will give this up. And then Sachi, who is the wife of Jagannath Mishra, top level Brahminical in society, and she's saying, no, I can never tolerate that your dharma will be transgressed. Now you've become a sannyasi, so you must follow that, right? But I want that you will stay not too far away. And then she suggested, Puri, that you stay there. Make that your base. And then I can get news very often from you. So Mother Sachi, after that, then she had to completely merge herself in separation mood when Sachinandana Gaurahari began his journey with Nityananda Mukunda and going to Puri and then stopping along the way in, what was the name of the place where Girachara Gopinath, Remuna, and then Nityananda's telling that story, and then Sakshi Gopal, and then Nityananda is telling that story, and then they get to what's it called? There's a bank of a river, like very close to Puri. Yeah, but the river's name, I'm not remembering the river's name. And that day, then Nityananda Prabhu took the Ekadanda, because the sannyasis carry an Ekadanda, right? And he's by himself, and he took Mahaprabhu's Ekadanda, and then he just broke it into 3 pieces and threw it into the river there. He says, what is this? That he will carry a danda? my Lord and Master, you know. So then the next day, Mahaprabhu asked Nityananda, because Nityananda was supposed to be responsible for the danda, right? Because he was entrusting it to Nityananda. And then Nityananda, Mahaprabhu said, where's my danda? And Nityananda said, it was broken when you were dancing so ecstatically, you fell on your danda and you broke it. So I threw it into the river. And then Mahaprabhu became upset. Why? What have you done? I am going by myself. So then Mahaprabhu, in the very last miles, and even being able to see from a distance, he went alone. Why? Because now Radha is coming to see Krishna. So he cannot be accompanied by Baladev, you know, and the others. And Mahaprabhu began running toward Jagannath Puri and running ecstatically. And finally he saw the chakra from a distance. There's a particular bridge there. I forget what it's called, that very place. And then Mahaprabhu went running and running and running. And he ran into the temple of Jagannath. And then he came in front of Jagannath. And then he just fainted on the floor. He was so overwhelmed in ecstasy and he fainted. And everybody was astonished. The public who were there, and they're seeing this beautiful, effulgent young sannyasi. And he's fainted on the floor. But the general rule is if somebody is creating some disturbance, then they have the guards there that will beat that person and bring them out, and you know. But just at that moment, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya came and he saw this sannyasi. He didn't know who he was at that time. And he saw him and he was astonished because Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, such a scholar. He knows all of the ecstatic symptoms described in the Shastras. All of this science of ecstatic, you know, rasa. He knew everything. And he thought to himself, I've never seen in anyone how these symptoms are manifested fully, in their fully blown, you know, condition. But this young sannyasi has manifested. He was astonished. Then he examined that he was still breathing. Very little air was coming from his nostrils. So then he instructed, carry him. And then they carried him to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house. You see. So all these pastimes, sannyas, lila of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for who? Why did he take sannyas? For the living entities, the jivas. That 24 years was especially for the jivas. But in that final 24 years, also, he went deeper and deeper in the extreme separation moods of Srimati Radhika, which is the main purpose of his descent. So, the Varnashram Dharma, Mahaprabhu showed example. Then he traveled all over India preaching as a sannyasi. But he was always far beyond that. But he was showing, and his example was also demonstrated by his intimate disciples, who were all renunciates. Rup Sanatan, 6 Goswamis, Lokanath Goswami, Bhugarva Goswami, all those personalities. Yeah, I'm ending it now. All those personalities, you know, they all showed extreme renunciation. Why? Because of praying. Because of praying. So we should relish and taste all these leelas, all this Gaur Leela, Chaitanya Leela, Krishna Leela, everything. This is our nourishment. This is our food. This is our life. We cannot live without this. If we try to live without this, we will become very dried up. So we must always remain very strong by hearing all these pastimes and merging in them and being with the Vaishnavas and hearing together and chanting and doing kirtan and all that. So we're here in New Braj, which is a very favorable place for it. So anyone who's visiting should eventually make this their home. Yes.
I just wanted to point out for reference for Udipan, what a 24-year-old looks like. Right here. Mahaprabhu was 24, right? When he took service?
Yeah.
He's 24.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
He's too young.
Yeah, very young. Very young and very, very beautiful. Jaigo is beautiful, but not as beautiful as Mahaprabhu. Okay, Gaur Premanande. Vancha kalpajarubhascha kripa sindhubhe vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo.